My name is Michael Tsarion. I'm a researcher in ancient civilizations and secret societies. This is my latest book, Atlantis, Alien Visitation and Genetic Manipulation. I myself am from Ireland and have specialized in what the Celtic records, the Druidic tradition, the Celtic mythologies have to say about the concept of UFOs and alien visitation.
Could you tell me about the hollow inner Earth? What are your beliefs and what's your evidence?
Oh yes, the hollow Earth concept is another one that goes back to ancient times. This is not something new, and in my book I have lots of resources about the hollow Earth, about underground cities, caverns that are discovered in the Earth. I mean, you only have to look at your own mythologies. The trolls, the dwarves, the elves. Where do they all come from? Why is it that we, in our burial ritual, right, in the Christian world, when you die, there's a ritual of being put back into the Earth? Ask any Zuni Indian, ask any Hopi Indian about the hollow Earth. They know exactly what you're talking about. It's completely replete in all the mythologies of the world about underground cities. And in fact, Admiral Byrd from the United States Naval Air Force, right? He flew over entrances to the hollow Earth. You have experts who know all about this, who've written extensively on the hollow Earth. And caverns that sometimes go as far as 8 miles down, with literally thousands of miles of ventilated shafts. Eric von Daniken has gone blue in the face trying to expose this. That these are caverns some of them are not natural, some of them are carved with precision, with laser, tools. And these, I explain from the outset of my book, I go into this, it's a very important factor. And in fact, there was even a prohibition in the Bible about drawing the likeness of any being that came from under the water and from under the earth, actually. It's in the Ten Commandments even. And you will find that if you go back to Celtic mythology, there are talking about beings that inhabited the hollow earth and under the earth.
I've studied a lot of the ancient texts that have been combined and written into several other old books. Madame Blavatsky, she was a big fan of the hollow earth theory and actually traveled down to South America and was looking for entrances into the South American cave systems, which are actually connected to the other tunnel systems all around the world. And it's fascinating. And you can come into a modern city, any modern city, someplace as big as Dallas, and when they're putting in highways, freeways, sewer systems, they inevitably run into uncharted tunnel systems under Dallas. And these tunnels have strange tracks in them with these little cars that move by themselves. And you think it might be a coal type of mine, or there's no coal mining in Dallas. You can go into a real coal mining town like Bridgeport, Texas, where there were actually several shafts back in the turn of the century, about 1800s or so, where they put 7 or 8 shafts into the under the town of Bridgeport. But today, there's not 7 shafts anymore. The whole underneath of the town is a webwork of tunnels. Why? And who did it? And I'm currently trying to get maps from the Railroad Commission to see, why and where are they going, and all the exterior entrances to these old coal mines are all sealed up, buried up. But many of the old buildings have secret access tunnels to the tunnel system underneath this town. So it gets rather fascinating.
Back again to the concept of secret budgets and secret societies. The governments of the world have long been seeking, because our pole shifted, and the Earth topography has changed. So lots of the normal entrances to hollow Earth have since changed, and some of them were in Antarctica. And therefore the ice on Antarctica makes it a problem now for people to visit there and go there. So the Nazis under the Adolf Hitler and the fascists that rule this country, namely the government, they have always been funding different individuals to try and go and reopen portals and to find entrances to hollow Earth. So Admiral Byrd was simply an agent who had flown over there, and he had a large budget, and they took ships out there, and some people say that they discovered entrances to hollow Earth. There's also hollow Earth entrances in the north. And I've researched this for many years, and I actually know where a great deal of entrances to hollow Earth are. What brought Atlantis down was what the mythologies say brought it down, which was a war between the gods, or a conflict between beings that were called the gods, and the kinds of technologies that they were using. This is a motif that you find in mythologies of the ancient world. The beings who interfered with our history are still around, or at least their descendants are still around, behind the thrones of government. And not only do we have to deal with the existential problem of evil within ourselves, we also have to deal with the social nihilism, the governmental paradigm, right, coming out of the 11th century BC, where the great empires of Sumeria and Babylon rise, and they're based on tyranny, territorialism, suppression of the earth, suppression of women. All the later epochs, all the later empires are based on those paradigms. And then they say in the history books that history just stops at 11,000 years ago, or that's when it begins, right? And we don't know what happened before that. A complete fabrication, because all the ancient legends have plenty to tell you about what was happening before that, which was that there was high cultures, high civilizations, who fell by the misuse of magic, who fell by the misuse of energy. You know, this is an old story going back, and we may be heading for the same thing. The Mayan calendar talks about the year 2012. They talk about it being the possible end of our world. I don't necessarily think it'll be the end of the physical world, but it will certainly be the end of the world as we know it, from a psychological, sociological, economical point of view. We can definitely expect many changes. We're already seeing that. And now with the attack on September 11th, there is very much a wake-up call to America in general and to the West in general to wake up, to discover that there is an occult history of their country, there is an alternative history of the world. And so my book also focuses on that. You know, the latter part of the book is about solutions, about the occult history, how these alien beings have infiltrated into our societies and are still around. I address the reptilian concept, which has been, of course, the center of what David Icke has been doing, and we have certain differences. And Zachariah Sitchin's work, I talk about that. I'm in the tradition of these kinds of scholars. It is crucially important that this is not accepted as mere history lesson of the past. These motifs have a very great bearing on our age. We talk about the alien DNA from our human point of view. You could use the word evil. You know, maybe it's not quite the right word, but it certainly is a word that implies that whatever the alien mentality was, it was different than ours. And I'll be specific about that. One of the major differences is the fact that these alien beings came from a civilization that was extremely technologically advanced. I mean, you're talking, you know, Mr. Spock and beyond, many grades further than where we are. And the Earth, in its pre-visitation state, was where our ancestors were very much in harmony with the Earth. Now, this doesn't mean much to most people anymore, but it certainly does mean a lot to shamanistic kinds of people and to early societies who understood what that meant, being in harmony with the Earth, where the mind and the Earth are at one. These visitors came in, and of course they didn't understand that, and they are very technologically, mentally advanced, without so much of the spiritual, human aspect. When they crossed our DNA, this is where we inherited this great inner schizophrenia within our own nature. And the sum total of that is the fact that today we have the criticism, and it's a correct criticism, that our scientific, technological abilities are far in excess of our psychological, spiritual, and emotional development. And many pundits, many activists, many scholars have said, why is this? Why is this happening in our society? Well, again, there is a definite answer. It's because we've had a propulsion unit behind us, making sure that we are propelled towards technological advance at the cost of the other. Because this is not something, again, that would happen naturally, right? It just doesn't happen naturally, and if you see it happening in the world, it is because there's some artificial engineering going on that makes sure of this. And it connects to what I'm talking about, where the visitation of these beings has been moving mankind steadily forward in a technological way because they have an agenda. And I talk about that in the book as to why they'd even want to be doing that. And when I talked about the Mayan calendar 2012 as an end game date, well, we're very close to that now. We're already past the new millennium. And philosophers, mystics, psychics are saying that time is going to actually speed up. And I think it already has. This whole 9/11, September 11th, is part of that cycle. Because the decade is better expressed as an ennead, an enneagram, which is divided into three sections, three triangles, if you will. The 9 years are divided into three threes, right? And the first triangle ends in 2003, obviously. 2000 to 2003 is one triangle. So in November 2003, there could be another attack. There could be another debacle. There could be another wake-up call coming for America. It's all based on how well we do in our learning curve.